Thanks for joining us. My name is Ladi Akeredoluale, and first, the latest developments on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, where the lower house of Russia's parliament has approved laws on annexing 4 occupied Ukrainian territories into Russia, following organized votes that Ukraine and the West denounced as coercive and illegitimate. No lawmakers in the State Duma voted against the resolutions, which sought to formally incorporate Ukraine's Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia regions into Russia. According to Parliament Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin on Telegram, the decision was taken unanimously. There are 89 entities in the Russian Federation, along with a map of Russia, including the 4 regions as well as Crimea, which Russia seized from Ukraine without international recognition in 2014. The resolutions had not been expected to face any opposition in either the Duma or the upper house, the Federation Council, which acts largely as a rubber stamp for Kremlin policy. Russia began a formal process of annexing the 4 Ukrainian territories last week, but none is fully under the control of its forces, and Ukraine has been making progress in counteroffensives in the south and the east. Meanwhile, Ukraine's envoy to the United Nations highlighted Russia's isolation at the United Nations after Moscow vetoed a UN Security Council resolution introduced by the United States and Albania condemning Moscow's proclaimed annexation of parts of Ukraine. China, for its part, chose to abstain from the vote. Earlier, the Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin proclaimed Russian rule over 4 regions that make up 15% of Ukraine's territory, the biggest annexation in Europe since World War II. The move, as we've been reporting, has been widely rejected by Western countries and even many of Russia's close allies. The United States ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, introduced the resolution that called on member states not to recognize any altered status of Ukraine and obliged Russia to withdraw its troops. She argued in the Council's chamber that the attempted annexation of a sovereign nation's territory went against the founding principles of the United Nations and said Mr. Putin was celebrating a clear violation of international law.
Sides, of course.
His lonely hand just raised against the draft resolution has again testified to Russia's isolation and its desperate attempts to deny reality and our common commitments starting from the UN Charter. Putin's envoy has followed in the footsteps of his master in Moscow, where a puppet show has been organized today in an attempt to deny the obvious, that the aggressive and adventurous regime in Russia is heading to its imminent defeat.
The illegal referenda that Russia held in Ukraine and the purported annexations of Ukrainian territory by force are a violation of the UN Charter and international law. They changed nothing about the status and borders of Ukraine. That is the firmly held conviction of the United States. This is the firmly held conviction of the Secretary General, and as you saw just now, that is the conviction of the Security Council, besides, of course, Russia.
The International Energy Agency has warned in its quarterly gas market report that Europe will face a, quote, unprecedented risk of natural gas shortage in the coming winter season and advised that European countries adopt gas-saving measures to meet the crisis. The report showed that EU member states should reduce their gas demand by 9 to 13% compared to our own consumption over a historical 5-year average to ensure sufficient gas storage before the heating season ends. Most of the reduction has to be made by consumers themselves by such means as turning down their heaters 1 degree Celsius and adjusting boiler temperatures. Besides, reductions should also be made in industrial production and in the operation of public facilities. The report predicted that if the reduction target is met, the average gas storage filling level amongst EU member states will remain at 20 to 30%, even if they can only import limited amounts of liquefied natural gas from other countries. But if the gas-saving measures are not adopted and Russia turns off its entire gas supplies to Europe from November, their gas storage filling levels could drop to less than 5%. In this case, Europeans could face a complete disruption of gas usage if a cold snap strikes, and that's according to the same report. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says the United States had increased prices and sales of liquefied natural gas after gas leaks in the undersea Nord Stream pipelines. A total of 4 leaks were discovered last month on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines in the Baltic Sea near Denmark and Sweden. Russian President Vladimir Putin blamed the United States and its allies for blowing up the pipelines, an accusation dismissed by the White House. Mr. Peskov stopped short of saying who the Kremlin thinks was behind the leaks, adding that there are also countries that have the military technological abilities to carry out such sabotage. In the Kremlin's view, European countries, the gas buyers, and Russia as a gas seller would not be interested in the gas infrastructure stoppage. A senior Russian official said it was technically possible to restore the Nord Stream gas pipelines, with Mr. Peskov saying they needed to be repaired, but that seabed assessments had to be done first. Let's speak now to the VOA correspondent, Anna Chernikova, who joins us for more. Good evening, Anna. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Let's start from this back and forth over this gas supplies and who's responsible for it, and if so, from where. The report from Europe says that gas reduction, usage reduction measures have to be adopted by all the countries in case the taps are turned off completely. They don't expect that to happen, but that is the worst case scenario. How do you think the European leaders will receive this, especially because many of them are very wary of upsetting their citizens?
You know, this was the problem already from the very beginning of this war in Ukraine, and Ukrainian government was saying a lot of times to its European partners and colleagues that, well, Europe definitely should think of certain alternatives, because this Russian supply and this basically, well, Russia is basically using this monopoly as a weapon in this war in particular. And it's definitely that European society, European leaders should think of alternatives. And this process has already started. So definitely this kind of situations and kind of unexpected conditions that happening just another proof that European society and community and basically the whole world should rethink this kind of cooperation and this kind of relations in terms of gas supply. So definitely it will be quite a difficult winter for everyone. Here in Ukraine, it's definitely a very great understanding that it's not going to be easy, but also for Europe. But this is also should be considered as a certain, way forward, because this is something that European society, Europe in general, should think of together, of certain alternatives and certain ways to remove this, unnecessary additional power that Russia has in this particular way. So definitely not an easy situation, not an easy decisions to take, but definitely decisions that should play well for the future.
Indeed. Let's stay with the economic argument and the economic issues and considerations here. The EU trade chief has signed a €5 billion memorandum to Ukraine to provide $5 billion to address liquidity needs immediately, including paying salaries and pensions and all of that. How much more support do you think Ukraine really needs at this point to keep things tiding over until perhaps either a peace deal is reached or perhaps military victories achieved on the battlefield?
Well, for the moment, we understand that Ukraine would need, would need a lot. Let's say not less, I guess. I'm not ready to talk numbers for the moment, and I'm not definitely a person who can talk numbers, but I think that we should consider that this support will be quite a long term. And this is what Ukrainian government is talking with its European colleagues, not only European, but international colleagues and leaders during different conversations and different summits. President Zelensky also mentioned this a couple of times, and we also know that there is this a certain map that has been already discussed about which country would support which rebuilding and reconstruction of Ukrainian territories in particular. So we consider this all together, and of course, it's not only about support when time comes, but also now, because Ukraine definitely needs this support, and this is something that will allow this victory and like final result to be achieved. Unfortunately, Ukraine for the moment is fighting at its territory, but fighting and protecting the whole Europe. And this is definitely what European partners understand, and this is why these decisions are coming. But of course, Ukraine is losing a lot for the moment, losing in different sectors of its economy. We just can, talk agricultural sector, for instance. Yeah, it's like huge losses for this year and for the future years as well, because this all is, go together and it's connected. But also other economic areas, and of course, the support is extremely necessary, and Ukraine is extremely thankful for the partners to provide it.
Let's move to the battlefield, which is where your last statement tended to end. And there, we're hearing that Ukrainian forces, of course, are advancing into Kherson, one of the 4 regions which Russia annexed only 2 or so those days ago. What more can you tell us? Because Kherson had been one of the toughest battlefields for the Ukrainians.
Yes, Kherson, in terms of its territory landscape particularly, is very difficult landscape and very difficult area for battlefield, but Ukrainian forces, they do advance. President Zelensky and military officials announced during the couple of days and over the weekend that there are good news coming, but they're not gonna announce them straight away because it's not time yet. So basically, we can understand it that Ukrainian forces actually advance, but Ukrainian government taking time to make sure that the territories which have been liberated are cleared, and there is no risk for announcement this, because it was already situations when it was announced, like certain areas were announced to be liberated, and then Ukrainian army had to battle, to fight more. So for the moment, it takes longer to actually find out what's happening. But we know, and it is confirmed, and I'm just looking at the map right now, that Ukrainian forces are actually going from 2 sides, and they're kind of advancing to the city of Kherson. The battles are very, very tough. And for the moment, everyone are concentrating on the east front line, but south front line is very active as well. And we can say that a couple of villages have been liberated over the weekend and today as well. It was already confirmed. And it looks like Ukrainian forces are actually managed to go through one of the lines of defense. But again, this we should wait for this final announcement for the moment. And of course, over the weekend, it was a lot happening in the east front line.
Of course, we're also hearing that the Ukrainian forces recaptured Liman, a key logistics hub, just a couple of hours ago. That's incidentally in Donetsk, which is another region which Russia had annexed at the same time as it did the other 3. What's the mood about that activity in Kiev?
Well, as Ukrainian officials and also European officials and US officials said that no one will recognize this so-called referendums that took place, and the announcement by Russia, the annexation around announcement by Russia. So Ukraine and President Zelensky himself said that Ukraine will continue to liberate its territories and defend its territories, doesn't matter what Russian Federation decision is. So, and we can see that the battlefield that, as you correctly said, the area, the Kherson region area has been liberated at certain point since this annexation announcement. And also Donetsk region, as we can see, the city of Liman was liberated on Saturday. It was already confirmed. And we can finally now talk about it, that actually Liman is now under Ukrainian control, and not only Liman itself, but also territory around, which is quite a lot of territories. What is the importance of Liman is that it's an extremely important logistic point. In terms of its importance, I think that we can compare it to the city of Izum. They have different, category of importance, and different meaning in terms of of the usage. But the city of Izum was very strategic in terms of its location. Liman is definitely the main arteria for the transportation and so on and so forth, and supplies. So for the moment, liberation of Liman would definitely mean a great positive effect for Ukrainian forces, as now they are much more, let's say, comfortable of advancing further. And we can see, we have reports that actually they are advancing further to the Donetsk region and also to Luhansk region. We know that Russian forces are trying to escape, and they are escaping to Luhansk, not to Donetsk region. So for the moment, this looks quite promising. And again, Ukrainian officials are confirming this kind of things a little bit, waiting a little bit more while the situation is settled in these areas. And we can say now, we're now basically safe to say that actually the area is quite a huge amount of territories have been liberated, and annexation announcement did not change anything in terms of Ukrainian going on and doing what they have to do, liberating its territories.
Indeed. Anna Chernikova of the VOA, thank you for that information from Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Thank you for our time this evening.
Thank you.